What's up, everyone? My name is Joe Laloon, and welcome to the Three Phase Podcast. Today's conversation is about hidden health stressors, the things that often get missed when someone is eating well, training consistently, doing all the right things, and still not getting better. We're diving into mold exposures, fungal overgrowth, parasites, and how these invisible loads can quietly impact energy, cognition, gut health, hormones, nervous system regulation, and even training tolerance. This episode is especially relevant for high performers, athletes, and wellness-focused individuals who feel stuck, frustrated, or confused by symptoms that don't show up clearly on standard tests. The goal here isn't fear, it's clarity, context, and a better framework for understanding why the body sometimes doesn't respond the way we expect. My guest today is Carl Weston, founder of Raven Wellness, longtime holistic health practitioner, a faculty member of the CHEK Institute. Carl has spent decades working with complex and chronic cases, people who've often been told their labs are normal, yet their health, energy, or performance tells a very different story. His work focuses on uncovering root causes through advanced assessments, functional lab tests, and intelligent sequencing, particularly in areas most practitioners overlook, like environmental exposure to molds, fungal burdens, parasites, and layered stress physiology. What sets Carl apart is his ability to connect these hidden stressors to the nervous system, hormones, digestion, movement, and overall resilience, helping people rebuild real capacity instead of chasing symptoms. This is a deep, practical conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you. If you're looking to train smarter, not just harder, all Three Phase Fitness training programs are currently 20% off for podcast listeners. That includes programs like the Busy Pro, Athlete Strength, and Built for Lacrosse, all structured using the three-phase model to build capacity first, then strength, then performance. You'll find the link and discount details in the show notes. This is exclusive for the podcast listeners. And now, let's dive into the episode.
The Three Phase Podcast is starting now.
All right, Carl, welcome to the Three Phase Podcast. Today, we've got Carl Weston. He's the founder of Raven Wellness, seasoned holistic health practitioner, educator, lab specialist, and faculty member with the CHEK Institute, where only about the top 5% of graduates really reach mastery. Carl has over 25 years of experience helping people uncover the hidden drivers of chronic and mysterious symptoms, from what our body is trying to tell us through gut, hormone, and nervous system pathways to the things often missed by modern medicine, like parasite, fungus, mold exposures, parasites, and layered stress physiology. His work blends advanced functional lab testing, personalized protocols, deep movement and biomechanical insight, and mind-body integration, all designed to go beyond surface-level symptoms, relief, and help clients restore real balance and resilience. What's especially unique about Carl is his emphasis on understanding the body's signals as data, not just discomfort, and helping people finally get answers when standard labs say everything's fine, but you still don't feel well. Carl, welcome to the show. Let's get right into it.
Thank you. Quite the intro there. I'm gonna have to copy and paste that one. That was
All right,
that was good, man.
I'll send it directly to you. So I'll just give a quick background. Carl and I officially met in person in September at the in-person IMS2 course for part of the CHEK Academy that I've been in for the last 2 years. This is my third year. And Carl was the instructor, I guess, there. And so we spent a good solid 5 days together, learning, chatting, learning, more learning. That was all good.
It was always a good week, good minds, good students, good people, good content, good class. It was
good teachers.
There were some good teachers, and I'm blessed to be one of them.
So can you tell us just a little bit about your kind of background and your own health journey and sort of what shaped the way you work with your people today?
Yeah. I'm probably not one of the super seniors, but I'm shifting into that, one of the elders within the industry now, with 25 years
Yeah.
25 years industry experience. I started off in the PT type world. Where a lot of people do, you start out as like personal trainers through university, doing like sports science degree.
Mm-hmm.
Moved into the rehab side of things, working along the physio and rehab therapy, and that took me around the world, and I got to work in some amazing practices and with some amazing people and some amazing clinics. Then moved to Canada about 14 years ago. Before I moved to Canada is when I met the CHEK system. We're in a world where there's constant growth on education. We're not in an industry that becomes pretty static. You can continue to grow, which is blessed about. And I was lucky enough to get introduced to Paul. I was working in a health club in the UK. And I was running the rehab and the training, the physical training side of this club. And one of my old bosses gave me a VHS, which gives people a good idea of how long ago that was. And it was Paul. It was like the scientific core conditioning, like one of his videos on that. I listened to that and I'm like, I figured in more in that like 90-minute lecture that he did, that I learned more in that than probably what I'd learned in a year at uni. And that kind of like propelled my education through the CHEK system. And then that just kind of really transitioned to where I went and, moved to Canada, opened up my own clinic at a couple of spaces in Toronto, downtown Toronto. 13 years ago is when I did the lab certification course. And it's been over the last 13, 14 years just blending my practices together. The body is, as you know, the body's complex. There's not a right and wrong approach. There's whatever works for the person that you're working with. What I love about the CHEK system and the FDN system that I blend with the physio side of things is it's holistic. I don't think there's many holistic programs in the world. But the CHEK system truly is holistic in that sense. And, I love that I get to teach that model because it really is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful models that people have access to in terms of like holistic healthcare. When we look at the biomechanics, we're looking at the body, but we're also looking at the nutrition, the mind, the organs, the energy side of things. And there's very few systems that I think that really catch all those elements of what we do. And, in that I've moved around the world, I've traveled, I've surfed a lot when I was younger. I surfed competitively and surfed under sponsorship and got to travel the world with that and meet a lot of people. Played rugby through school, obsessed right now and have been for the last 7 years with jiu-jitsu, 7-8 years now, jiu-jitsu. I've just been today at lunch. And now living in Canada, running a clinic where I do orthopedic assessments for people in person. And I've just started working with a guy over in Dubai. So all that's virtual, and he's got patellofemoral syndrome on his knee. So I'm working with him. And then the lab side of things, which is probably my biggest obsession and fascination right now, is really helping people jump into their health through the support of functional labs, because healthcare systems are failing a lot of people at the minute, sadly, and there's a need for a blend of that holistic healthcare, and it's a big need.
Especially when people have gone down sort of the traditional Western medicine paths kind of as far as they can. They get to the end of the road and the response is either we can't help you or there's nothing wrong. Like there's no reason why you should be feeling the way you are. And they're kind of just left on an island by themselves and they don't really know what to do and who to seek out and what other questions they could be asking to try to get to the sort of root of it. But early in your career, what was the moment you realized symptom suppression wasn't enough and you needed to find more about root causes?
Oh, good question. That really stems from the physio side of things, working from a clinical space where, you have this paradigm that if someone comes in with a knee injury or a shoulder injury, you had this approach to the injured point. If it was a knee, you treat the knee. If it was a hip, you treat the hip. If it was a shoulder, you treat the shoulder. And people would only ever get 60% better.
Mm-hmm.
And, they get to 60, 70%, and then you kind of stall with them.
Yeah.
And I was really left scratching my head at that point, and I'm like, where do I go from here? I was really like, I don't know what we're missing, and that's when the CHEK side of thing kind of really fit in, because I'm like, there's more missing than just, it's not just biomechanical at this point. Otherwise, every physiotherapist would be inundated with people. You'd be considered kind of like gods with the Midas touching your hands, because physiotherapy would heal everyone, and it's just plain and simple, it just doesn't. And it's changing today. We're bringing in those other elements where we now know the importance of nutrition and sleep and mindset. But it was probably about 18 years ago when I was just like, this just is not working. And it was a little bit frustrating at the time. I was really close to completely leaving the industry. At that point, I was like, I was on a bit of a crux of, I'm either gonna leave the industry completely, and I'd just got an option to go to Sri Lanka for 6 months and work on an elephant sanctuary. And I got through this curveball to go to Bermuda and run a clinic in Bermuda. And I'm like, why not? Let's go. It's warm all year round. There's good surf.
Good surf.
Small island, and good financial resources and good money down there, and a really good athletic community there. Like, the triathlon scene was massive. There was the sports scene was really good. There was soccer, there was rugby, then there was all the ocean water sports. And it was going there that really kind of helped me change and transition my approach to the body. I had a little bit more freedom down there, and it was a little bit easier.
Do you feel like you were on your way out because of the frustrations of like really only being able to get someone to 60%, but feeling like you were given all the tools, like through school and education? It was kind of like, here's our total toolbox, go have success with it. And then once you started using that toolbox, it still wasn't enough to get people that last sort of 40% to being fully healthy and striving again.
100%. The thing, I was talking to our boys about this today, because with the boys have gone through some injuries in the last year. Like,
your sons are playing lots of football.
Yeah, they play football, and there's been a broken arm and a broken leg. And I was saying to them, I'm like, Carter's broke his leg right now. He's like, I'm good. And I'm like, no, buddy. I'm like, you're not in pain, which is one thing. But are you healed to be able to go do everything you do? No, you're not there yet.
Yeah.
And that's probably the easiest way to analyze my frustrations with it. People get pain-free and they think they're healed. So they go back to doing whatever it was that created the pain pathway in the first place. And, they're probably going to be good for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But at some point that recovery process has been hampered at that point. And that was my biggest frustration.
Yeah.
It was people get pain-free, but they're not necessarily addressing any of the other factors that we know and now help people with and teach through the CHEK principles.
Yeah, especially for, teenagers, but also, probably all the way up the age brackets, is that people are impatient and they want to get back to doing the things that they're doing. And as soon as that pain signal is off, they think, okay, great. Well, I'm not having pain anymore. I must be healed and ready to go. And not really fully understanding the timelines, especially when mostly what people hear is 6 to 8 weeks, for everything. But as you dive deeper into it, and you have to start to know the difference between bone healing and tendon healing and ligament healing and tissue, like muscle healing, those are all different timelines. And so if everyone is thinking 6 to 8 weeks, well, it's like, what bone was it? What kind of fracture was it? Right? All those things are different timelines. And if you take someone off of their healing protocol and put them back into, the high stimulus of sport and competition, like you mentioned there, is that you're taking them off that healing path and ultimately sort of stunting what could be a fully recovered broken leg, and potentially like leading them to more susceptibility to injury down the road.
Yeah, and that's a frustration. Listen, I get it, and I'm sure you get it as well.
I've been there.
Yeah, I think anyone that listen, I'm 44. Anyone that considers himself an athlete, I do jiu-jitsu a lot, and I'm a big guy, and I'm fighting big, heavy guys as well. But And I'm coming off an injury myself. I injured my back 6 months ago, and I'm literally for the first time since the beginning of the summer, I'm pain free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a long haul, but putting all that stuff together and getting people to that place where they're truly healed, I'm like, give me a year.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say everyone's going to live to 100. That's 1%, one
Yeah.
1% of your life. Give me a year. Let's make sure you're 100%. And a lot of people don't. And listen, I know we all get it. It is frustrating not being able
Yeah.
to do those things that you love, not having those outlets. But we have the most amazing thing that you are blessed with, which is the human body, and we like to abuse it and beat it up. But just when injuries pop up, give it that time and care, because man,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can serve us real well.
Yeah. When someone comes to you and they say, like, I think or when they say I feel off, like they're just not
Mm.
kind of normal, what's the first thing that you think and why? Hey, thanks for listening to the episode. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to remind you that you got discounts for Trainerize, Bioptimizers, Whoop, and ATP Labs in the show notes. Okay, back to the episode.
Really depends what it is. I mean, let's take a global scenario of what's going on in the world. 90 probably percent of the population's what we would consider quite unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no knock to modern society and anyone that's going to like chip in and listen to this, but the way that we're being forced into work, it's no longer an 8-hour work day. I think the average person works between 10 and 12 hours.
Mm.
There's a 2 to 4 hour commute trip for those people,
Yeah.
and they're funneled into the Netflix. We literally just watched something last night, and we watched Elf actually last night,
Yeah.
and not even 30 seconds into the end of that movie, and another movie had started, and Chris is like,
Right.
"What's this?" And I'm like, "I've not got a clue." Like, and I said, it's so frustrating. It just pops up, and people get drawn into that.
Yeah.
What show? So then the sleep's disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
Food, the food that we're eating is it's diabolical today in a lot of places, especially in the cities. When you get in there, like a lot of the food in grocery stores,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much anything on the inside I would recommend you don't buy.
Yeah.
Stick to the meat and the fruit and the veg aisles. And I just think most people struggle. So when people come in and they're like, they just feel off, I'm like, tell me more. Like, my brain just starts running. Okay, well, it could be diet, it could be sleep, it could be mold, it could be a parasite, it could be, tell me really what's going on, and let's start narrowing that down, and let's start trying to just figure out which path we're going to start on to approach the body.
I think that was one of the biggest things for me with CHEK, like the Institute and the information was the intake just opening sort of Pandora's box of information. Like before, when I would do intakes coming from like a personal training side of things, it would be a lot of like, what's your injury history? What activities do you do and like to do? It's like mostly like physiological things, like how's your body holding up, basically. And then when we started doing, the even the how to eat, move, and be healthy intakes, and then the HAQs, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, all right, hang on. Now we got, instead of like this sort of like narrow laser pointer looking for letters to get a sentence, now it's like, oh, we've just opened up this giant textbook with a flashlight, and now we can start to see like, okay, that makes sense why that is happening, because that thing over there is completely related to this. And it was just like, okay, holy smokes, we got so much more information here to work off of. For you, like when someone says like, hey, I really don't want to work with you, what's kind of the first input for you? Like, what's the first thing you send them that you want to start to see information on? Like, is it those HAQs, and
every
how do you go with
time
that?
the CHEK questionnaires is the biggest. It's the biggest drop of information that we have access to. Even if someone reaches out for me, like for a pain management perspective, they've got back pain. This guy, I've got knee pain, shoulder pain. whatever it is. I'm like, you know what? I've got some stress questionnaires I want to send out because I do need to look at everything. And
Yeah.
I still send out the nutrition and lifestyle questionnaire from what we know as year one within the holistic coaching world. Like I will send out that because it's got a really good, it's a very broad spectrum, but it's a really good
Yeah.
overview. I
Mm-hmm.
send out the HAQ as well, but that's a little bit more for my own personal findings because there's so much information in that with regards to the organ specification pathways. But the
Mm-hmm.
nutrition and lifestyle questionnaire is great. You can see where's their biggest stress. Is it the diet and the nutrition side of things with whatever they're eating and the time that they're eating? Do we have detox pathway problems and potential gut organ issues with the fungal, the parasites?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it general stress? I think everyone has stress to a degree, but like what's the main pull on someone's life? And stress is a big one today. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everything's getting more and more expensive, and we live in somewhere where we have winter, and relationships are
Mm-hmm.
stressing people out, and governments and things like that. There's a lot of stress in the average person's life today.
Yeah, I think just to go a little deeper on that too, if you can, is just this idea of stress summating, which is not something people talk about really outside of the CHEK system. You don't
Mm,
really hear it very often, but when people think stress or when we mention stress, people think like, oh, my job is stressful or like I have financial burdens and that's the stress, but they don't necessarily understand that like everything basically is a stress input unless it is a non-stress input. But let's say
yeah,
for most day-to-day inputs, they're all different forms of stressors, and those stressors add up and create a sort of global stress system that has larger impact. But maybe you can go deeper on that and just kind of give a bit more of a deep explanation on how stress summates.
yeah. I think we've been so. I really think people my age, again, I think the younger generation see this a little bit differently, but anyone like the mid 30s to 40s and older, I think we've been taught to compartmentalize stress.
Hmm.
You've got relationship stress. I think, well, that's just normal. With this financial stress, well, that's just normal. The stress at work, well, that's just normal. And I think we've been taught just to kind of just the little bit of the stoicism through our parents' generations. And it's kind of rubbed off. So we just take all these things and it adds up. And that's where people think, well, I've got a little bit of stress here and I've got a little bit of stress there and I've got a little bit of stress here. And I'm like, well, that's already a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't understand is the catabolic effect of stress on the whole body.
Hmm.
And like we understand now because we see it starts to break people down. And
Hmm.
this little bit of stress here, you're worrying about this family member, you've got something big, you got a deadline for work coming up, your relationships causing you stress, or you've got kids that are causing you stress, they're having issues in school, they're getting bullied, or they're not making the teams that they want to make, whatever it is. And it adds up and it adds up and it adds up where
Hmm.
people don't ever seem to look at the picture and think that all this stress bulks up and it all adds up. And then we put on top of the things that we really dial in, that we've spoke a little bit briefly about right now. You put in bad sleep, another
Yeah.
stress response on the body. You put in bad nutrition, another
Hmm.
stress response on the body. Put in things like alcohol, caffeine, things that people don't necessarily see as a stress response and more of a eustress type thing that supports
Hmm.
the body. And I'm like, nah, caffeine's a stress response.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a big stress response.
Even
And
bad exercise is a
bad
stress
exercise.
response.
Yeah, I mean, too much. And again, listen, I'm one for that. I've been injured and been having to tailor my workouts with jujitsu.
Hmm.
I've really struggled walking. And, we live in the country and I love to go for a walk. And I went out yesterday and it was the first probably walk I've had in 6 months where I wasn't in pain. And, so I'm like, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? I'm trying to train. I'm very aware of my body and what I can and can't do, but it's
Yeah.
another stress. That adds on to my overall bodily stress. And
Yeah.
listen, winter, we have zero control of the winter,
Hmm.
but it's a massive stress response on the body. And, the cold temperatures, the dry air,
Hmm.
the lack of sunlight that we get, all these little things add into stresses on the body. And
Yeah.
It just every single thing that you add in, it turns that dial down on when's the body going to break? What's the break point?
Yeah.
Where's the break point? What is the break point? And a lot of people don't really observe all these little stress things as being, I don't know what your traffic's like there, but the average person driving into Toronto, I know Toronto's got one of the worst commute times in the world now. I think last time I heard it was worse than LA.
Yeah. Could
and
be.
you're thinking that, like, yeah, it's not a bad thing, but that's got to be stressful, having to drive into the city every day, or even having to jump on a train and go into the city. Like, there's stress everywhere. And I think as a global response, most people don't see those things as stress, because it's not like, listen, you're not being held at gunpoint in a gas station for all your money and things like that.
It's pretty normalized.
Yeah, and it adds up, and you get to our age, you get to mid-30s and 40s, and then things just start saying no.
Yeah. So this is a good time for this quote from you. So you don't have a discipline problem, you have a load problem.
In all ways. I think you know what? The one thing that I'll tie off this is, I don't believe that, like, for all the people that are going to listen to all the checkers, I don't really believe in overtraining.
No.
I believe in under recovery.
Yep.
And listen, we can jump into that fence of, well, our body can detox and deal with all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Our body can detox, but what we are bombarded with today was nothing compared to what we've ever been able to pull comparisons on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to rely on that. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. I'm like, no, we've not. We've not been exposed to the chemicals and the air pollutants and the stress load and the lack of nutrients in the soils, which transfers into the foods and things like that. And we're living in a new generation, and it's got to change. Something's got to give.
Yeah, I mean, even just like the social media is 10 years old. Like that's a blip, and that itself is a massive, probably the biggest stressor for most people, especially sort of under 30-year-olds. It's the biggest stressor in their life is what's going on in the supercomputer in their pocket. And that's a whole new thing. Like, that's not something that's been around. It's not something we really know how to manage, and it's normalized. So it is a massive input of stress for people, right?
Listen, I don't know if you're aware of what's going on in Australia right now, but Australia and New Zealand have just banned social media for under 16s.
I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
And I think that's the best thing you could do. It's the boys have, I don't know, I want to say Snapchat on their phones, and we're really diligent with it. Like, my wife's really diligent with that. We're very open communicators in our family. But there's bullying there, and we've seen it. There's been incidents in the schools when there's been cases of bullying and things like that. One of the local schools was shut down because someone had posted on Snapchat pictures of guns, and they said they're coming to this school.
Oh yeah.
So, and I'm like, this is like, we're in the country, and that's happening out here in the country, and we're like, well, what's going on? And it's just another level of stress, and we don't know how the body deals with that. But it's finding that fine line of using it as a support and a tool, and not letting it rule and create a detriment to the stress response.
So I think, just to put a bit of a pin in this sort of stress, there's a reason that we're talking about this so much, because as we shift into the labs and all that kind of stuff, to see how much impact those things have and why this has come up. But maybe give us 1 to 3 things that people could start at least paying attention to, in terms of what are some stressors that they can actually control or change. What are a few things that they could do in their life that would bring it at least to their attention, so they could start making adjustments to it?
Ooh. Good question. Big question. Okay. What can they change automatically as habits?
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to really talk about anything, let's talk about, like, habits. There's a lot of things we can't change. We can't change the winter. We could move, but that's not feasible. Sure. Habits are probably one of the biggest things, and we're in control of all of those. And it's probably the hardest thing, to break old habits and start new. one of the first places I work with all of my clients is sleep. It's a non-negotiable. We
Yeah.
don't need to stay up till midnight watching Netflix and however enticing the Stranger Things episodes are, or whatever it is that people are watching right now. It's not like sleep is the number one thing where people can make and pay the attention to. And that's where I generally hit all my clients first. I'm like, what's your sleep cycle like? Let's dial that in.
Yeah.
Because there's so many big wins with that. The other little one is just pay attention to what you're eating. I always, when I'm teaching, I always explain this. I'm like, food's not something clients are going to change overnight. That's probably going to be a 3 to 6 month coaching process, but learn how to read labels. Don't obsess over it, but learn how to read the basics of labels of proteins, carbohydrates, sugars, at least like be able to identify what's going in your body.
Yeah.
And then I want to say one more thing, move. I don't care what that is.
Yeah.
And I do have my opinions about a lot of exercise things out there, and I'm very vocalized, and you guys probably hear that when I teach in about certain exercise patterns and group classes and things, but I don't care what it is, movement is needed for everyone.
Yeah.
So find a source of whether it's walking, jiu-jitsu, golf, CrossFit, I don't care what it is. You play lacrosse.
Yeah.
Find a hobby, find an activity and do something and do it. Move the body every day. Start there.
Yeah, it's a pump. People don't realize that too, that you gotta move it for the whole system to work. Okay.
It's a big pump.
Shifting a little bit towards the from intake and then into the sort of mold sequence of things here. So what is the biggest blind spot conventional testing misses?
I could talk about every lab that I run and what's missed in the healthcare system. So let me preface this. The healthcare system looks for disease. And whether I'm a fan or not a fan of the healthcare system, I think it fails in many ways, but it's also really good at helping with disease and fixing broken bones. Listen, Carter broke his leg. The first place we're going to hospital.
Yeah.
I'm not rubbing essential oils on and running a GI map to see what's going on.
Crystals over top of the shin.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for the medical system. The downside to the medical system is they have their things that they're trying to identify and what they can work with. And I'll say that it's strongly tied to a pharmaceutical playbook. Let's say that. What I'm looking for is ultimate health. I want to make you the best version of yourself. I'm not here to diagnose and prescribe disease and illness. I'm here to look at the labs and say, well, you know what? You do have parasites or bacteria, or there is mold in your urine and your blood panels. You've got a fungal infection. Where the medical system's not looking for that because there's not a prevention side to the healthcare. They are a little bit more of the cure side of things. You have a disease, let's give you something that takes away all the symptoms of the disease. And where the lab side of things, I'm a little bit more, no, let's look for the root cause and let's treat that and let's heal you. I'm not interested if you've got a disease state. I'm looking at what's creating that disease, what causes it, and we look at the global body and we look at the holistic approach from that.
I think a big quote maybe was from when we were in person there was that, the goal is not to heal the disease, it's to make the body healthy enough to compete with the disease or the illness or whatever it is.
Disease cannot thrive in a healthy body. You look at all disease states and they thrive in a body that's not in a prime environment. And be it for whatever reasons, let's look at the easiest thing, which most people will be able to resonate with this, is the metabolic disease. The obesity, the blood pressure, the diabetes, those types of things. those types of people with those illnesses are generally a lot more sicker than someone that's not obese, not got blood
Hmm.
pressure problems, not diabetic, not pre-diabetic. I've not been to a doctor in over 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch wood because I don't want to have to go see a doctor and things like that and things. But I think I've not been to a doctor in over 20 years because I really take care of myself. I know how to manage all the things that we've been talking about previously.
Yeah.
So there is that. There is that health thing. But with the labs as well that we do, the doctors are not necessarily trained on diet and lifestyle choices. They're not trained on parasites, bacterial infestations, H. pylori problems. Mould's a really new one. You want to really get into this. What fascinates me is mold. Doctors are very unaware of mold, but mold affects so many people around the world.
Yeah.
And the problems with how that presents and shows up in the body is very confusing. And the medical system will struggle to that because they can't. There's never one system to treat. It's a detox pathway and a cleanse system that we need to look at, and it's not a
Quick
there's
fix.
not a symptom to cure with a medication. There's we have to treat the whole body and treat the person, not the disease.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, for a lot of people, they don't think about mold, or they're told it's rare. So, with what's your experience been, especially because you can do these labs and you've seen, maybe hundreds of people drop labs off for you. So, what's your experience been with mold specifically?
Mold's never my go-to lab, but whenever I suspect that it's there, it's been there. And if someone has mold exposure, mold poisoning, mold toxicity, there's a number of things which will show up for said person. It's never one thing, but the things that it does show up at will confuse the average person.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have things like, you're going to see brain fog. So you're going to see all like the cognitive side of things, brain fog, mood swings, like highs and lows, eyesight problems, lack of like cognition, can't focus, can't concentrate. Like the people that are like, I'm ADD and they're like 50 years old, and I'm like, I've just discovered that I'm ADD, and I'm like, that's something you don't just discover that at 50.
Yeah.
And but that's tied in then they've got digestive issues as well.
Yeah.
And they're starting to get gassy, or they've started to bloat, or they start to see inconsistency between constipation and diarrhea, and then you dig deeper into it, and there's hormonal issues, and they're like, there's lack of libido, there's fatigue, there's all these things, and you just start thinking, well, how can there be so much when like 2 years ago you were fine?
And it almost feels like it's flipped on its head completely. Like if you went from a high, healthy, high-performing, functional person, do a bunch of activities as hobbies, and then all of a sudden it's just like flipped on it, and you've tired, laying on the couch, can't think, can't see.
And nothing makes sense. And the doctors are just like, and if they've gone down that medical route, the doctors are left scratching their heads because they'll run like a CBC, which is like a complete blood count.
Yeah.
And everything's fine there. And there may be like a little bit of liver markers or something that's like inflamed because it's trying to process and detox the body. But they're left scratching their head because there's never anything really indicative of what it could be. But this person's telling you, no, there's so much going wrong with my body.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, most of the people that come to me that run that are very healthy people. And they're the ones that are fighting and pushing like, Carl, something's wrong. And my doctors are telling me there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what have they tested for? Send me your blood panels. Let's look at them and see and make sure that they're not missing anything. But like, and they just know they know deep down that something's wrong. And then every now and again, when I've worked with other patients, I run a GI map because they've got all these digestive problems, and it comes back better than the average CHEK, and I'm like, I'm there scratching my head. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. They've got all these symptoms, but they're really clean on like the GI, meaning there's no bacterial pathogens, no parasites.
Yeah.
Or they're really struggling with hormones or thyroid issues, and you run like a thyroid panel or like a Dutch panel for the hormones, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And you start to see these indications where their symptoms aren't what they're saying. So they're presenting with something, but you run a lab and then it's clear. And then like most doctors would be like, well, I don't know. And
They kind of
they don't
stop
look at
there.
it from, they don't look at it from the holistic sense. And more often than not, they're like, we're just going to have to live with it. I'm like, you don't live with it. You keep digging and you keep finding, and mold is always at the bottom of that,
Right. So
bottom of that hole.
you kind of have to clear a few things first. Like you may sort of anticipate that it could be the root cause of it, but you feel like you kind of you have to go a few steps first. Like, let's do this assessment, let's do this one, let's do this, and if those are all kind of like generally okay, then it's the next step. Like you feel like you have to do sort of a um, elimination, I guess, of assessments to get there.
Yeah. The only clear path with mold is when someone knows that they've been exposed to it.
Sure.
Like, and I do get the odd client comes in every now and again. You'll get that patient will turn up and like, you know what, I've been living in a house for the last 2 years. I know there's mold there.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, let's run a mold panel and let's see what's really going on, because there's different variants of mold and they attack the body in very different ways.
Yeah.
So you're really lucky if you get that person that you can kind of pinpoint, bang, they know there's mold there.
Yeah.
And there's questions. Do you live anywhere where is your house ever flooded? Is there any leaks? Is there a damp, musty smell? You ask these questions on those intakes, and if any of those come up, it's like, let me pin that. Could be mold.
Yeah.
Mold's always there, but 9 times out of 10, like I said, it's people will come to me for a digestive thing. That they've seen someone on social media talking about parasites, and they think it's there, and I'm like, okay, so let's start that pathway and let's see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, you hope that it is that, because mold's also really tricky to kind of clear that out of the system, because it has that ability to cross that blood-brain barrier, and it can really impact organs. It gets into the organs, as opposed to like bacteria as the living organism that doesn't really take over the host in the way that mold does. But mold's one of those ones that it's just when nothing else makes sense, and you take labs out of it. If you're just someone going through the CHEK Institute and you're working with those things, if someone's following the 4 doctors and the 6 foundational principles, and by that I mean, if people are sleeping really good, they're eating really good, they're moving, and their mindset's really good, but they're still really struggling.
Yeah.
That to me is like, we need to dig deeper with that. And mold would definitely be one of the conversations. And, you don't need to be running and ordering these labs at like $500. You just start simple questions. Is there mold in your house?
Yeah.
Do you get condensation on your windows? Like, has your house ever flooded? Has anything ever leaked in the house? Does it smell musty in any of the rooms? Like, do you have
steam rooms and closed showers?
Steam rooms and those things, yeah. And I'm like, can you see mold anywhere? Most people think it's normal. I'm like, it's not normal to have mold in your house.
Right. A lot of cottages here too, that are close to water. So there, could be some exposures through that. Boathouses.
I mean,
boats.
Ontario's like the amount of lakes and things that we have. All these people that close those cottages up through winter and then open them up, they all smell moldy when you open them up, because they've been closed up for winter. And I'm like, this is not great, because if it smells musty and damp, there's a mold problem. That's cool. That's like one of the volatile compounds from it's called a VOC. And they're the spores that are being released into the air when you can smell dampness.
Yeah.
So I will tell anyone, if you smell dampness in a house, in a closet or anything like that, walk out the room, get a dehumidifier in there, get an air purifier in there, open the windows and do some investigation and look for that. But we're in a prime spot for mold with just the sheer amount of water that we have.
Yeah.
In our like Ontario itself, there's lakes on every corner, and
Yeah, a bit off like this specific topic, but sort of the same thing. It's like with blasto, here is really big where it's in the soil and a lot of dogs get it and die from it. And its region that was pretty contained for a long time is expanded, from Ontario, it's into Manitoba now. So it's like even something as specific as that as a
Yeah.
form of bacteria or mold is like they move and they grow and they expand and they evolve too. But yeah, when you're in environments that are close to water, you got boats and things that are in and out of the water. You got clothes that are wet and damp and they sit in a closet for all winter long. And you got bed sheets that are, they're just sitting on beds all winter long. Those things, they can just get exposure just from dampness in the air, a leaky window or
Listen,
whatever, right?
back to when I lived in Bermuda, it was you bought like these lights that you would put in your closets. It wasn't a light, but it gave off heat. But you couldn't. It was very hard to keep leather down there, and it's the same in the tropics. And you go down to Australia and any like the equatorial places, it's really hard to keep leather because if you didn't have a dehumidifier in the room or in your closet or something like that, within 24 hours you'd have mold growing on leather straight away.
Wow.
It's a porous material that mold can set up roots and get into, and it's really bad.
Yeah.
But anyone, leather shoes, belts, clothes, things like that, whatever anyone was carrying, like you'd better off not having it there because it was very hard to care for.
So how do you prove mold is actually affecting someone both in their environment and in their body?
You run a test. Can you prove that mold is the cause of their symptoms? No, but if there is mold there, then it's going to show. And the thing with mold is, I'll tell you now, with a lot of the labs, 90% of the mold are foodborne molds.
Interesting.
And not so much airborne. So my approach to it is if it's in your house or you think it's in a workplace, you can get something called a got mold. So it's www.gotmold.com. And they sell they sell single room to multi room test that you just put this little device in the middle of the room, and it basically it takes air samples through this, through the device, whatever it is. You send it back and then they do the analysis there. That tells you if there's mold present in the house. If there's mold present in the house, then you really need professional help to come in and clear the mold. Yeah. I will tell anyone and everyone this: don't run a mold test on yourself until you've discovered where the mold is. Because there's no point running down a mold protocol or doing labs with like a functional health specialist or someone like myself if you've not been able to identify where it is. And, I've been working with a CHEK down. He lives down in Nicaragua, which is very, again, equatorial, very damp, and he was worried about mold, and we ran a mold test, and I was like, listen, 90% of the molds that showed on his test were food grade ones.
Okay.
So I'm like, clean up your food, make sure your detox pathways are fine. You will be fine. There's none of the more serious ones there. But if you do identify that you've got mold in your house, or simple enough, if you can see that there's black mold on walls, or you go down to your basement and you see that there's mold growing in corners or in the corners of your windows and things like that, then sure, run a mold test. But you got to make sure that you're killing it at the source and removing it at the source before you even try to treat yourself, or it's going to become a very expensive treatment process that you just treating one thing and pushing on the other.
Yeah, that makes sense too. So like that would be a good example of like why people get caught in cycles of symptoms even after they think they've cleaned up their environment. Like if they're going through an internal detox of molds, but they're not actually eliminating the root cause, you go and expose yourself to it again, you're just back into the same cycle all over again because the exposure is still available for your body to be exposed to.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the same thing with a lot of the labs that I run with people. I'm like, listen, I'm working with a girl right now in the Azores, and she tested for about 5 different parasites, which is really rare. Normally there's 1 or 2, but for me to see 4 or 5 parasites on one lab, I was like, oh, geez.
No.
And I'm like, you need to find the source. And I kind of figured out, I knew where it was coming from, and it was actually coming from the water. So a lot of the island's water comes from their natural springs. It's mountain water there.
Yeah.
and they don't have very good filtration systems within their houses. And we've been going through this protocol, and she said to me, she's like, "Do you think I should try going on bottled water for a few weeks?" And I'm like, 100%, because I'd already had that conversation with her. I think the problem is the water.
Yeah.
And she sent me an email this week. She's like, "Carl, my life has changed going on to bottled water."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Well, that's going to get expensive. If you're buying it." I'm like, "Nah, okay, then you need to put a full filtration system into the house."
Yeah.
If your water source is that, then you've got to treat the problem, and it's an easy treat. It's a full house filtration system, and yeah, that's going to be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
A long
But
run.
if she doesn't treat that, she's going to be running parasite protocols every 3 months, and that's going to be $300 to $500 every 3 months. That adds up real fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's your $2,000, $3,000 in a year just on protocols, and it's just like, why would you keep putting something in? Yeah, why would you keep putting something in your body if you're going to have to keep running things to try and kill it?
Right, and then also having your body be in this, response state to trying to kill these things off, and this amount of
state of
messing up hormones and sleep, and like that could be from, I mean, who knows what the source is, but it could be like, different fish that are in that water stream at different times of year, different animals that are walking through the water streams at different times of year. Like it could be any of those things.
Anything.
Right?
A bird, a migratory bird could be flying past and could poop in the local stream, and bang, you got parasites in it. And dogs could be fecal content from dogs and cats and people, and it really doesn't matter where it comes from, but if you can identify the source, it's a really big help. And we're all exposed to parasites, just so everyone listening to this knows, whether you live in Canada or equatorial tropical places and things like that, or Africa or Southeast Asia, we're all exposed to parasites. Like they're everywhere, and they live symbiotically with us at times, and they come and go. But it's when they become a problem that we need to.
For how prevalent they are, like they're everywhere. You can kind of get exposed to them basically anywhere. Most people think, I go on vacation and that's where I get them. But why do you think it's still such a taboo subject in wellness?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not talked about more, because we really, and again, listen, social media's changed a lot of this exposure to this. There are certain people on social media that will tell you now you have parasites through your body, they're everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I buy into that, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because I'm running labs every day on people, and they're not always there, and we're looking for the common ones. But I do believe that we get exposed to parasites all the time.
Yeah.
Back to what we said earlier, healthy bodies generally parasites cannot thrive in a healthy body, and that means a good digestive system, good movement, good sleep. They're not going to stay around for long. They're just not going to be able to take up host. When they take up host, it's an indication that something is impaired within the body. And again, we can tie this to mold, that there's parasites, a lot of parasites tested are there because there are molds in the body, and they're actually feeding on the molds. So they're symbiotic then. We need them. They're a benefit, and they're actually helping the body because the body's not able to produce these or to break down these molds. So the parasites are attracted to us for that sense. Same with heavy metals.
Right.
We see a lot of parasites. When we start to do heavy metal cleanses and things like that, because they're in the body absorbing these heavy metals where there's exposure to heavy metals.
So one of the ones that we brought up was like with dental fillings, which is kind of that, maybe 50 plus. It's pretty common, that age group, where they would have had multiple types of metals as fillings, so gold, silver, mercury, or lead, and two of those are really bad and cause metal poisoning, right? Heavy metal poisoning. And then the other two, which I found, and you could definitely dive deeper into this, is the multiple metals causing frequencies in that lead to basically like a ripe environment for parasites to thrive in. So a few of those, I remember reading those and I was like, whoa, like who's thinking and talking about that? Like I've never heard that before in my life. And then when I mentioned it to clients, they're like, wow, they don't even, they don't really even know if they have multiple metals, but then they go ask their
Mm,
dentist and they're like, okay, this could be a problem for me.
yeah, I mean, geez, a lot of things there. Fillings is definitely one thing. There's a lot more holistic doctors that are doing removals of old cavity fillings, and they used to use the various metals that they've used in the past.
Yeah.
There are videos where you can see just with toothbrushing the little microspores of metal that come off and then get into the bloodstream.
Mm.
And as a general consensus, metals in the body are not good. We have minerals and things like that in the body, but when they build up within the body, they become very toxic to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the downside with the fill-ins, because they do create this constant exposure to this just very small levels of metal every day. Like every time you would eat, every time you'd brush your teeth, you'd get exposure and exposure and exposure.
Yeah.
Why the teeth are so important: every nerve ending that goes from one of the tooth is connected to a different part of the body and a different organ system.
Mm.
So you think of like a piano system, like a piano key, like all these wires are going from one key to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's another connection point to our entire body. Then the other side of that is the vibration, the frequency side of things. Metals and everything like that change the frequencies within the body. Some people are still a little bit hesitant to believe about frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but that's what an ultrasound is.
Yeah.
Like if you talk about like wanting to kind of calm the vagus nerve, the best thing you can do is hum.
Mm-hmm.
And singing, it calms and calms the vagus nerve system down, and it's all vibrations.
Yeah.
And I have some of my clients are like, vibrations, crystals don't heal and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, like that's wrong. There's plenty of studies that have proven that vibrational resonance does treat and does cure and does heal certain things.
Yeah.
Does that mean I want people rushing out to crystal shops buying crystals? No, because it's very, very specific to what you've got to do. But that vibrational resonance has massive healing abilities, and you put that when you start putting that metal in teeth that have nerve points, and then that vibrational resonance that the metals naturally give off, because every metal is associated with a vibrational point. Every
Mm-hmm.
mineral and every element if you look at the periodic table of all the elements, they all have vibrational frequencies that they emit, and it all changes the whole body. And a lot of people really struggle with that, like that's too woo-woo. And I'm like, whether it's woo-woo or not, there's plenty of documented stuff with that vibrational resonance heals the body.
Mm-hmm.
And I think dismissing it would be a big undoing to the holistic system. I've seen it myself, like it works in tremendous ways. And like I said, for my clients that don't want to believe that, I'm like, well, yeah, anyone our age has probably been through some form of therapy at this point. Then you've probably had ultrasound.
Yeah.
And like anything that has that vibrational frequency is healing the body.
Mm-hmm.
But
And then the other thing that came up with that too is like that was like really fascinating to me was that if someone is exposed to heavy metals, that the parasites actually play a pretty important role of sort of encapsulating the metals into their own bodies. So when, as much as, parasites are, and these cleanses are starting to come out more on social media, we don't, like anything, want to just do something without assessing it, because if someone is really exposed to heavy metals and they also have parasites that have been encapsulating it, and then you kill the parasites, that heavy metal is going to go back into the system and cause this poisoning effect. And the body is not healthy enough to detox that increase of heavy metal in the body. You're in a tough situation. So I think getting proper assessments is really important, but also knowing more about this stuff is important too. So don't just rush out, like try to find someone who knows what they're talking about.
Oh, I get very frustrated with people on social media telling you to do their parasite cleanse. For that reason, there are very specific pathways that you should follow. You need to make sure that your detox pathways are very open and clear. And to me, that means that the lymphatic system's working correctly and you're going to the bathroom and eliminating 12 to 24 inches every day.
Every day.
Every day. Just for anyone listening, like 12 to 24 inches every single day. And it should be solid stools. If you have diarrhea or constipation, that's a problem. Then, like you said, you have to make sure that your detox pathway. So we've got to make sure the lymphatic system, we've got to make sure that the colon's clear. You need to then make sure that the liver's functioning right. And there's no extra burden on the liver, because you put these toxins back into the body. They've got to have somewhere to go. And 9 times out of 10, these people hear that, like, I want to do that. And they feel lousy and they stop after 2, 3, 4, 5 days, because it creates something called a Herxheimer's reaction, where you kill these parasites and then the parasites die, and then you see all the whatever they've been cleaning up in the body, the heavy metals, the molds, things like that. They're just they're re-put into the body, and the body has no way of eliminating that and removing it safely, because the burden's just too much for the system. So when that happens, you are creating one hell of a toxic storm in that body.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure that it's done right, and there is a protocol, there is a specific way that we treat and we clear the body, and it's making sure that the foundational and the detox pathways are open, and making sure, like, the biggest one's the colon. The colon and the lymphatic system need to be functioning well. The liver does not need to be stressed out at this point, and if you can rule those out, then yeah, you can handle these cleanses and things. But then you also need to know what you're trying to get rid of,
right?
Because they all have different life cycles, and they all have different proprieties of what are going to attack them better.
Right.
Like, there's not one thing that kills a parasite. There's multiple things you want to use, and you also want to cycle it so they don't build up a tolerance to it, because they're really smart at building up tolerances to things that you put in the body.
And that's why a lot of these, like, blends that you can buy at sort of health shops are usually not most effective, because they're just one blend of a few things, and you take that every day, and the parasites get clever to it, and they stop engaging with that, and then they survive it, and then that thing that you put in your body to get rid of it is cleared through the system, and they just keep sort of thriving within the system.
Yeah, a lot of the shop type things, and a lot of things that you see on your line are really good at maybe getting rid of parasites, but they might not be very good at, like, the microbiome disruption side of things. And if you think like mouth to anus, there's like think of like a slime layer, that whole layer through, you got that biome, and it's like the bacteria and the parasites are really good at burying themselves in that. And if you put something in that's going to kill them, they can sense that these said protocols have been put in. They can bury and hide.
Yeah.
And their eggs will be buried, and they'll be well hidden, and they'll come out when they know that it's clear to come out. And then this cycle and I see this all the time. I did a parasite cleanse. I felt amazing for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
They just
then
hid.
The following month, all my symptoms came back, and I'm like, well, you've not done it long enough. You've not done it hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's just going to come back. And I see that all the time. It's like a rinse and repeat. I'm like, you shouldn't need to be doing a cleanse every month.
Yeah.
Like, do it once and get rid of it, but do it right.
Do it properly. How are the fungal imbalances and parasites connected with gut symptoms we all know too well, like bloating, fatigue, and brain fog?
So the biggest connection that I see with probably 99% of people is H. pylori and like a bacterial dysbiosis. The bacteria. Listen, we have 3 to 5 pounds of bacteria in our stomach. 95% of that should be good bacteria, and anywhere from like up 3 to 5% is probably going to be bad bacteria. What I typically see is the opposite. You start getting like a 50-50 of good to bad.
Yeah.
they're the more common ones for like the day-to-day symptoms of like gas, bloating, diarrhea, brain fog, like cravings, things like that. That's the biggest problem. But if there is a dysbiosis, it's opening up your entire body to all the bigger things, the candida infestations and the parasitic ones.
Mm-hmm.
Parasitic symptoms are very cyclical.
Right.
You know, there will be like they have life cycles. So let's say you get a parasite, it's going to lay some eggs. That parasite's going to die at some point after it's laid those eggs.
Yeah.
You know, unless you've got like a tapeworm or something that's just going to feed off of you forever, and then that's very clear that you've got something wrong because you just have this massive amount of weight loss.
Yeah.
But the normal parasites, like they're cyclical, so they come out. You get all these parasites come into the body, and then all the symptoms clear up just literally overnight. You wake up and you feel good, and you feel good for a week, and then slowly but surely these symptoms come back again.
Yeah.
And that's one of the clear indicators of parasites, that it's very cyclical. Like you'll have diarrhea, and then you clear it, and then it clears up.
Yeah.
And then it comes back, and then it clears up. And then with the candida, like candida's a little bit more. Candida's really smart, but candida's probably more cravings.
Yeah.
I see a lot of cravings, and I see a lot of skin issues with candida, as opposed to like bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, things like that. But or any digestive things. Hey, first off, I want to say this for anyone listening: none of that's normal. I want to be really clear with that. Gas is not normal. You know, a little bit here and there every day, not normal. You should not be burping and farting after every time you eat something. You should not be bloated after every time you eat something.
Yeah.
You should not see food in your fecal matter. So you shouldn't see food in your stools, undigested food. You shouldn't be stuffed for hours after you've eaten, or you shouldn't be like crazy hungry within like a quick amount of time. Like these symptoms are not normal, and the medical system and Google will make you think that they're normal and everyone in the world has them. I hate that. It's not true. None of those things are normal. And if you have any of them, there's a very big indication that you have some form of digestive disruption, and 9 times out of 10 it's probably bacteria with H. pylori, and a high probability of maybe a parasite or a candida overgrowth as well.
Yeah, I think people overlook it so much. Like, you know, I've had conversations just with, you know, people that I've worked with, and they're kind of think like, oh, I just thought it was kind of normal to be a bit bloated after eating. And then you got to then do due process and kind of narrow down, you know, what's causing it and, you know, what you could do about it. For the cravings, like a lot of the common ones are, you know, like sweets and meats, right? That's kind of the cravings that people have.
Yeah. Definitely. Sweets is the biggest one, you know. Sweets is the one that gets my alarm bells ringing a little bit. Yeah. That crazy sweet tooth that you just can't satiate it.
Yeah. And a lot of people will think they're like, oh, I'm just undisciplined. Like I just love sweets all the time. But it's like, it's for, you know, for you, it's a big red flag. For me, it's a new red flag where I'm like, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So is this new to you? And they're like, yeah, it just only started in the last, 6 months or something like that. Like I never had it like this before. That's like a red flag. Okay, well, something's going on there, because if it hasn't been normal for you forever, or some people, they're like, yeah, I've always had a sweet tooth. Well, it's like you could always have these things inside your system.
Candida can be in the body forever.
Yeah. The other one that's good to know for people too, if they're sort of thinking about it, is that they might be, exposed to some of this stuff, is like you said, the life cycle of it, where it might be like they're alive for a month and then they die off and then they, replenish, but also within the day cycle for a lot of people who are waking up at night, which I've run into just so much. And people are like, it's unexplainable. I'm always waking up between 1 and 4, and then I'm like wide awake and I can't figure it out. But the sort of circadian cycle of a lot of these things is inverted for ours, right? So during the day, you kind of feel normal, whatever, and then you go to fall asleep, and 1 o'clock, you're wide awake and you can't figure it out. But it's because they're waking up, like these parasites and
parasites and candida will be like considered a nocturnal being where they come to life, and is what it's doing. It's creating a cortisol response in the body,
Yeah.
and it cortisol stress. So for pulling back to our conversation earlier, stress is not good, but it creates a stress response in the body that wakes us up, and then we get this dump of adrenaline, and we're up, and then we're awake at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Can't fall
Funnily
asleep.
enough, one of my friends was just saying that today. He's like, you know what, Carl, I keep waking up at 2 o'clock, and I'm like, you got a parasite, mate. There's like a parasite or some candida or something running through, but it's a gut problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest thing I want to say to anyone listening for that, none of that's normal. Like, it is very normal because, there's a lot of people that have it, but it's not normal. Like, you shouldn't be gassy. And listen, you drink a can of pop or something, then yeah, you might be a little bit gassy.
Carbonation.
Burpee, it's carbonation. But you shouldn't eat a meal and like be farting all night. That to me, that's a big red flag that there's digestive disruption. And I think a lot of people suffer without really knowing that it's abnormal. Again, the medical system doesn't see it as a problem. Health isn't a focus of the medical system and the grand population of things, and I'm like, well, it really should be, because it's the one thing that we're all doing. We're all eating, but if we've got these things that are stealing food and taking nutrients from our body, it's just making us a little bit more fatigued and tired.
I've seen this sort of cycle too, where they're not getting to the root cause. In that example of like waking up at night, being really, wide awake, they can't figure out what's going on. They go to the doctor. The panel that they run is a cortisol panel to see when you wake up in the morning, what's your cortisol like? Oh, it's really elevated. So we're going to give you a medication that decreases your cortisol. And all of a sudden, everything becomes out of whack because now your body's trying to regulate. It's got this thing in there that's suppressing cortisol. And really, if you could get more to the root cause of it, we might actually see like the reason that your cortisol is high is because you have a parasite, and it's a response that happens at 2 o'clock at night when they wake up and start moving around. And when you wake up in the morning, your cortisol is still elevated, and you're having this like spin off basically from that throughout the day of, you're tired because your adrenals are jacked up, and you're having a diabetic response because you're insulin sensitive, because the adrenals are connected to insulin, and you just go down this sort of negative pathway, and someone ends up on 3 or 4 medications because the root cause was never identified and addressed.
Yeah, and like that's a really big problem, and again, guys, I wouldn't say a lot of things. Like when you're looking at a lot of the tests through like the medical system, it's a snapshot of there and then. Like our bodies are very fluctuating throughout the day with all these things, and a cortisol test should be done a minimum of 4 times a day if you're ever going to do one. We don't just need food once a day. We're not like a car. We don't fill our body up once and wait till we run dry. We're constantly in need of all these things. So we've got to be aware of that. And yeah, these things just we are conditioned, and sadly, we're taught today to just normalize all this stuff. And I don't think that is normal, And when people meet people that have gone through the training that we've gone through, the CHEK system's like a 4 to 7 year program, depending on how fast you want to go through it. When you start to have conversations with people, they realize really fast that, well, hold on, none of this is normal. Pain is normal if you got an injury, but no, we shouldn't be living with pain as we age, and we shouldn't be constantly fatigued, and we shouldn't be needing coffee to get through every single day, and needing that second cup of coffee in the afternoon just to get you through till 5 o'clock. And I feel that we're just being conditioned to beat our bodies up over and over again, and instead of striving for homeostasis and wellness, we're just like, we're conditioning people just to walk that line of just staying alive and not being healthy. And I think that's a big problem today.
Yeah, and really not striving. Can someone have any of these, like candida, parasites, without these classic textbook symptoms?
Yeah, you can definitely have low-level Lyme ones. H. pylori is the classic one that can be there and can kind of sit under the radar because it's a little bit more of a Trojan horse. You can definitely be like asymptomatic with candida. Parasites can definitely be, and again, flying under the radar. do they consider constipation and diarrhea as normal? Probably they do, and they don't have any association of that. Well, hold on, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog's barking there.
So,
So you have all these people that are just unaware of like their line of what's considered normal.
yeah.
You know, for me, I'm like, if you got diarrhea or constipation, I'm like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, let's Loki. Let's figure out what's wrong. But candida can live under the radar. You know, if someone's not eating healthy and they're eating like a standard American type diet and there's plenty
Yeah.
of carbohydrates and sugars in there, candida would be living really happily there, and you just wouldn't know.
Right.
You know, maybe you're a little bit fatigued or things like that, but
You just think
that
it's
would
normal.
happily kind of just lie under that radar.
I think it's tough too because a lot of people, like, what their baseline is so below homeostasis that they don't really remember what feeling at their homeostasis should be and like what that actually feels like. I think that's been a big, thing that I've seen with individuals is like when you sort of bring them back up to that baseline, they're like, oh my God, I forgot
Yeah.
how it feels to just be sort of normal and not be
To
fatigued and not be
wake up and
sore
have energy and feel
yeah,
amazing. And I'm
but for
like,
some
come
people
on, guys.
it's been decades since they've had that just neutral feeling that everything is normalized to be like, yeah, I'm on the toilet a few times a day and it's not it's not solid and they're in some chronic pain and they like everything becomes like what you're exposed to on a regular basis becomes normal. So if you're not exposed to health on a regular basis, then that feels subnormal or above normal. And to get there, a lot of people think, especially as they get older, they think like, it's not for me anymore. I can't get back to it because it's just been so long since I've been there. And I mean, ultimately, you've got way more numbers than I do, but you've seen it, time and time again, where it's like you can bring people sort of almost like back from the dead just by, the six, core principles and the four doctors and just starting with that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, people get revived from the way that they've been living.
I had a conversation like this with one of my clients this week, Mike. I've been working with him for years. He came in with back pain, a little bit of obesity, like overweight guy. Got rid of all of his weight, got through his back, but I've just been able to get him off alcohol. And he's 3 months now, and not big drinking. I mean, like he's gone through like the drinking phases, but we went down from like having a few beers every night to no beers and just like a vodka tonic on the weekend to now nothing for 3 months. And he's like, I can't get over how much that was taking out my body.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, you put that in your system for 1 or 2 days. It's going to take 4 or 5 days for it to clear out and for your body to feel normal. So he's now 3 months off of it. And he's like, Carl, I feel amazing. Like my energy's up, my sleep's better, my body's not inflamed. And he's like, I can't understand how people are just living like that cycle. And I'm like, well, they think it's normal.
Yeah. Even though he was living like that 3 months ago too, right?
We're just conditioned to think that pain, that stiffness, that unease is just part of aging.
Yeah.
We're all conditioned to think, oh, it's just part of getting older. I'm like, nah, it's not,
No, especially if you know some people who are living healthy. I mean, like your exposure to Paul, my newer exposure to Paul, it's like that guy's a North Star. Like he's in his, near 70s and he's thriving, and it doesn't, age really doesn't have anything to do. It has to do with, what you do normalize and what you're doing on a daily basis to move yourself towards better health and ultimately live sort of a better life overall and not just accept aging as the sort of excuse for why things are going sideways.
Listen, I train hella hard, mate. Like as much as I can. I do jiu-jitsu as much as I can, lift weights and things like that, and I have to pay attention to my recovery. But I surprise a lot of the 20-year-olds when they find out how old I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Because and like I'll roll and I'll get up tomorrow and be able to do it all again.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be sat around moping and nursing my body. I know what I need, and I know hydration and food and good night's sleep, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah. How do mold, parasites, and chronic stress interact with the nervous system regulation and hormone balance?
Oof. Nervous system regulation is a really big one because they all impact it in very different ways. Mold probably has the biggest impact on the nervous system. Just because of the fact that the way that it attacks the brain and the way that it globally attacks the entire body.
Mm.
When we're thinking about the nervous system for anything else, be it the hormones and the parasites, it's just that constant stress response, and it constantly brings that function system down, and it's like just a consistent wear on the body, you know. And it's like every day you're going to wake up with, let's say, 1% less than what you had the day before.
Yeah.
And every day you just, until you get to a point where it will wears you down until you're sick.
Yeah.
And then you're forced to rest and sleep and recover. And, you know, you bump yourself back up. And, you know, as we move into winter, people get sick and they get constant colds and all these illnesses. And I'm like, well, no, your nervous system's exhausted because you're probably not living the way that we know people should. And it just dials it down every single day.
Yeah.
And you put in these external factors and they just wear the body down, and the longer it's there, the longer it goes ignored and untreated and undealt with, the bigger the problem becomes. And I'm talking like, you're not talking like months, you're talking years before when it really becomes a problem.
Yeah. Sort of a silly analogy is, but it's like if you hit yourself in the thumb with a hammer accidentally every day. All right, that shock, that bruise, that constant, pain response, that's all going on all the time in the background. And you can imagine if it was, if you hit yourself in the thumb with a hammer, that would get painful and the body would get fatigued from trying to deal with that stress of healing that, recovering that, and, going through that pain cycle of that.
Yeah.
The physical thumb is a little bit more obvious to people than their system, their internal systems.
Listen, our whole body's connected. We're a system of systems in that sense.
So I got a quote for you. Sometimes less is more. The body needs capacity, not punishment. Why do top performers sometimes regress when they double down on training or fasting?
Less is always more. I think the whole training paradigm is so screwed up, and we're seeing that with the boys and the way their coaches approach their football practice and the amount of times they're training. Like they're at high, like Carl is in high school and he's training every day. Well, that's too much.
Yeah,
like, it's way too much. But it's just, this is something that's been carried down and passed down from coaches to coaches. Ultimately, I think most people train too much. I think people overtrain. They don't do the correct recovery. I said before, I don't believe that we overtrain, and I don't believe that we overtrain, but I don't think people put the emphasis into recovery.
Yeah.
There's that age tipping point. At what tipping point? And everyone's different. Every athlete's different, whether you take Joe Bloggs off the street, your weekend warrior, or like your professional athletes. Everyone's aging process is very different, to the point that overtraining becomes a detriment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of athletes in the past that have overtrained, and ultimately it's been listen, let's take Ronnie Coleman, for example, take Tiger Woods. People like they have physically overtrained, and it's absolutely destroyed their bodies towards the end of their career. When they're young, 20s and 30s, fine. Your body can tolerate that. But people have this mentality that we've just got to absolutely obliterate our body and punish ourselves to get the gains and the wins. And it's absolute absurdity. I think it's a little bit more of a machoism or a warrior mentality that you got to be punished to get the rewards that you need. And I think that's just old school programming coming out of where a lot of the training programs come from.
I think it's a huge gap too in the integration of the nervous system to training, where people think it's just how is the body physically responding to something that we're giving it, doubling down on these ideas, and not understanding that what we're really trying to train is how your nervous system responds to the stimulus that we're giving it. And the nervous system takes more time to recover than maybe a bicep does. But people are just looking through it through the lens of, well, how did the body respond? Well,
Mm,
we're starting to look at it like, how did your sleep respond? How did your libido respond? How did your energy the following day respond? Like we want to see the tells of the nervous system. And that could be, applied to anything. It could be fasting, it could be any of these cleanses that we're talking about. It's like
mm.
how is the thing that you're doubling down on uh impacting the nervous system and sort of the runoff from
That's
that?
why you've got to make a healthy body. And listen, there's a reason why I just think this is ass backwards and absurd. You need a drink, you need an energy drink to go work out.
Hmm.
That to me is so contradictory that you got to have a pre-pump, a pre-workout. And I'm like, you've not got the energy to go work out. I'm
Yeah.
like, put in some put creatine, great, some EAA is great, but you shouldn't need energy to go work out. That's a clear indicator you're not treating the system that needs to be treated. We see these people, caffeine addiction, just exhausted, tired but wired. You'll hear that.
Yep. Yep.
It's just, that's the nervous system. That's the nervous system just being fried. At some point, it will break.
That
Um,
sounds like that energy drink was a recent conversation with one of your boys.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they
They've
need.
like they've had those conversations about what should they. I'm like, I wouldn't do any of them.
Yeah, take a day.
And like the monsters have been brought home before, and I'm like, I get mad. I'm like, why? You don't need that. Like, you
Yeah,
don't need those things at your age, and it's frustrating, because there's a fine line of you've got to let them make their own decisions, but I'm just going to educate them, and I'm like, listen, there's plenty of stuff on social media that I can send them and share with them about the
yeah,
downfalls of that monster and the energy drinks and how bad it is for the body.
yeah,
And we'll just try and educate them on what's better for the body for those sessions in hand.
yeah. So walk us through how you approach advanced testing. So stool, hormone, organic acid, and what you're looking for that others miss
So
as part of your process when someone sort of signs on
yeah,
and works with you.
like the intake forms are like a big direction, and then most people come to me because they have very clear issues, like they're dealing with gut issues or they know their hormones are off. Um, but I don't order a lab without doing a discovery call with any of my clients. The
Yeah.
first thing we do is we book a call, we have a conversation. I'm like, just tell me what's going on. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me where your health's struggling with. Tell me what you've done, who you've been to, like what's going on. Give me the
Hmm.
full picture. From from that point, you can distinguish where you really need to start and what lab pathway you kind of want to go down. And I've got a name for myself as like the gut and the hormones and the oat labs and things like that. So people are seeking help through those specific labs at this point. They've 9 times out of 10 they've been through the medical system and they've not been helped.
Yeah.
So now they're left doing their own research and things like that, and they come to a little bit more functional. But not all functional doctors approach the body the way we do.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of people that have been to naturopaths and functional doctors, and I get frustrated because I'm like, they're still not looking at the body from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah.
Still like a very clinical standpoint, medical standpoint, where it's like, you've got this, you need to do this. And I'm like, well, no, you've got this. What else is happening to the rest of the body and what's
Yeah.
creating that? And that's, again, the root cause side of things. So my approach is it's individuated. Like, it comes off the questionnaires. We do a discovery call. We look at the questionnaires. We look where the body's being stressed, and then we pick and choose what labs are often best suited, and we go from there.
Yeah. And I think you've said this too. It's like labs aren't answers; they're data points on a map.
Yeah. It's just, and for me, a lot of the time, I wouldn't even really suggest that you need to run a lab, but clients like to see the data.
Right.
For me, protocols won't change and lifestyle factors and coaching won't change, but your clients like to see that hard evidence so they know it just gives them enough of a tipping point to actually make the changes that they need to change.
Sure, and they may be more bought into the whole thing
Yeah.
at that point, and there's just a bit more engagement because they know, like, for sure this, or at least to some high percentage, this is it. I'm in. Like, let's do what it's going to take to clear that for us. What's the DRESS model, and how does it guide real life protocol sequencing?
So it's very similar to the CHEK model, the 4 doctors and the foundational principles. It's diet, rest, exercise, sleep, supplementation.
Hmm.
We believe that you need to clear those lifestyle factors before you supplement at all.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people go straight to supplementation. For me, it's always like, well, let's have a look. What's your sleep doing? What's your nutrition doing? Are you exercising? What's your stress load? Then look at everything else, and then we put in the protocols and the supplementation.
Yeah.
So it always comes down to the holistic approach of fixing everything else in your life that's broken. Don't just try and cherry pick the problem and try and fix it with a supplement. It's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, it's not getting down to the root, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
What is the weirdest client case you've ever solved?
Weirdest client case I've ever solved. That's a good question. I feel like a lot of them solve themselves in reality of things. I think a lot of people know that there's something wrong. Like, I don't believe it's me that's really ever solving them, but I think my biggest wins is people know something's wrong and they're fed up of being told that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I think I give them the empowerment and the tools that, well, no, this is what's going on. Let's work with this. And then the biggest win every time is actually getting people to realize the impact of the diet, the sleep, the exercise, the mindset over all of that.
And they have the power to change it.
Yeah, and listen, I could read through 4 or 5 emails that I've had this week. My clients feel amazing when they're on these protocols because it gets rid of what's been missed and they start to feel that they've got a little bit of their life back. It's hard for me to pick out one case, but I'm not kidding you. I've probably had the last 5 or 6 emails. Everyone's like, oh, my gas is gone. My bloating's gone. I'm actually going to the bathroom. I had one girl that's messaged me, and she was like probably going once every 3 weeks.
Wow.
Really constipated. And she's like, now I'm going to the bathroom every day and I'm this and I'm feeling better and my energy's coming back. That's what I want to go for. And, but the hard work's on them.
Yeah. What's the maybe weirdest symptom that you've seen that was a big, light bulb for you that you're like, or maybe the first time you saw a symptom and you're like.
So I had one client, downtown Toronto, every time she'd walk into a condo apartment, she'd break out in hives. And weird story, parasites, a lot of them. But she also had, out of her bedroom window, she could see 12 cell phone towers.
Whoa.
And I honestly do think that it was like a little bit of EMF stress load to the body, which was exposing her and making her vulnerable to the parasites. We got her to go away for a couple of weeks and she started the parasite protocol in Hawaii. She came back, she walked into her room and she broke out in flares as she was on the phone to me.
Wow.
Like, you got to leave, go to Blue Mountain where they had like a little cottage up at Blue Mountain. She did that. And we realized that it was the actual environment within the house.
Wow.
And not 100%, but I would probably think that she had some form of hypersensitivity to like the EMF side of things. And it was creating parasites and hives. And when I say parasites, I'm like every morning she was pulling them out of her body.
Wow. Talk about frequencies having impact.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish everyone knew about their health journey?
It's a life journey. It's not a day. It's not a week. I mean, I wish it was. It's a life journey. It's not linear. Like, even the healthiest people aren't always healthy. We get sick. Paul gets sick.
Yeah.
It's something that you got to work on all the time. And you 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, do the best you can. 20% let go and have fun, like you're probably going to do tonight,
a little bit,
or this weekend. And yeah, like, enjoy. You're going to go out and celebrate with family and friends. But it's a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's a lifestyle, and it's a choice. It's not a I'm getting married in 3 weeks. I'm going to do my best for a couple of weeks, or I've got a party to go to. And this, it's something you want. Your mindset wants to be, this is what I'm going to work on for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it gets easier the longer you do it, because it becomes more set in, like one of the first things we said in this podcast, routines.
Yeah.
like you break those boundaries and those barriers, and then it becomes really easy for you.
I heard this quote, not to get too off topic here, but for someone who's been doing it the longest, it takes the least discipline to do it. For someone who is brand new to this, it takes the most discipline because you are breaking habits that have been ingrained for a long time. For someone who's, for me, I've been doing this for 20 some years.
Yeah.
For you, it's been 40 some years, 30 some years. And, it's just part of our regular routines to go work out and eat healthy and, drink
it's just life.
clean
it's
water.
The way that we choose to live now, It's like, I don't drink alcohol and I go to bed by 9 o'clock and, there's a lot of foods that I won't eat. I just know, how to radar that.
Yeah. So if someone is stuck, overwhelmed, or delusioned, what's the first step right now you tell them to take?
Sleep.
Yeah.
Get
First
sleep.
and foremost.
Sleep, hydration. Just, you can't think straight if you're not recovering. Like, the cognition declines, the food requirements change if you're not sleeping right. If you're struggling with anything, work on getting some rest.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop, rest. I can't express how much a good night undisturbed sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You got a young kid. You know what a good undisturbed sleep feels like after coming off of going through that. Like, sleep is the miracle thing, which is free for everyone.
Yeah,
and it's the biggest win point.
And prioritize it. Like, maybe cancel the Netflix subscription and
prioritize sleep over anything. Get an early night. Do that for a couple of nights, and then let's observe and let's look at really what's going on.
Yeah, because you have more energy, you can think more clearly, you can make better decisions, you can start moving the needle in the right direction. Where can listeners find your content, courses, and how can they connect with you?
Raven Wellness. It's the easiest. RavenWellness.com, Raven Wellness on Instagram, Raven Wellness on Facebook. I don't have a YouTube channel and I don't have TikTok or Snapchat. RavenWellness.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Yep. I saw I've got an invite from you. I've got to connect with you. I'm on LinkedIn, but Instagram and email. I'm not a social media fan. I'm on social medias. I do all of my communication, if I can, through email. I try and funnel people to my website and then through email. But RavenWellness.com, if you got any questions, you just want to connect, see anything, come through there.
Yeah, and you got a great blog with good information on there. You got courses upcoming that people can sign into and to get involved that way too.
Yeah, come and check out my website. Sorry, it's getting close to that time where my dogs are feeding. So
I'm with you.
Just everything's through my website and my social media. I've got I'm doing a cleansing course coming up on how to correctly cleanse the organs and in order. I run business mentoring for people that want to get a successful business in this world. I run courses on mold and the GI system, and then I do all my labs and I do all my coaching side of things. So RavenWellness.com is probably the easiest place to start.
Beautiful. And we'll put that in the show notes. So if anyone wants to go and connect with Carl, you can just scroll down. It'll be highlighted. You can click on that and introduce yourself.
Awesome.
Perfect, Carl. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and divulging all of your knowledge, or at least a piece of it, so that people can learn a little bit more and improve themselves.
It's been my absolute pleasure. It's great to see you, and I love that we're spread out globally. We're all there. We're all trying to really help people and heal people the right way. So you keep spreading the gospel in that sense, and keep spreading the right word and helping people get healthy.
Good. And we'll see you in person soon enough.
Soon, brother. You take care, my friend.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If this episode resonated, the biggest takeaway is this. If you're stuck despite doing everything right, it's worth looking deeper. Hidden stressors matter, and context matters, and sequencing matters. A huge thank you to Carl Weston for sharing his experience, perspective, and grounded approach to complex health issues. You'll find links to Carl's work, Raven Wellness, and his educational resources in the show notes. Quick reminder that all 3-Phase Fitness training programs are currently 20% off for podcast listeners. The link and discount code podcast20 are available in the show notes if you want to take advantage to any of those training programs, and I invite you to do so. If you're enjoying the podcast, leaving a 5-star review really helps more people find these conversations. On Spotify, tap the 3 dots at the top of the show page, select Rate Show, and leave a 5-star rating. On Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom of the show, tap Write a Review, and leave a 5-star review there. I appreciate all the support, and as always, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you everyone for hanging in for the full episode. I appreciate you all. Quick reminder about the brands that make this podcast possible and the offers that you can take advantage of. These are products I use daily and they help me perform at my best, recover faster, and stay on top of my game. Coaches, you know how hard it is to juggle clients' programs, progress tracking, and communicate. I've been there too. After years of grinding it out, I finally found Trainerize. It brings everything I need for coaching into one platform. Whether I'm onboarding new clients, scaling my business, or keeping people accountable, it just works. I've tried other platforms over the years, but for the last 3 years, Trainerize has been my go-to. It's easy for me to grow and for my clients to stay consistent. If you're a coach looking for flexibility and simplicity, check it out. Use the link in the show notes to get your first month with Trainerize for free. Here's the thing. Good sleep and recovery aren't optional, especially if you're trying to train hard, stay sharp, and keep up with life. That's why I use Bioptimizers. Magnesium Breakthrough and Sleep Breakthrough have been game changers for me. I've tried other products, but these ones deliver. High quality ingredients and noticeable results. If you want better sleep, digestion, or recovery, Bioptimizers fills the gaps your diet can't. Trust me, you'll feel the difference. Use the link in the show notes and the code 3phase10 to get 10% off your order. I used to stress about getting perfect sleep, and ironically, it ruined my sleep. That's when I started using Whoop. Whoop gave me clear insights on my recovery, strain, and sleep patterns, so I stopped guessing and started optimizing. It created a positive feedback loop for better sleep, better decisions, and better training. If you want to train smarter and recover better, Whoop is the tool you need. Use the link in the show notes and get the device and your first month with Whoop for free. Nutrition is the foundation of performance. That's why I trust ATP Labs. From Supreme Beef to MyoPrime Creatine and Pure Essential Amino Acids, these products fill the gaps in my nutrition and help me recover faster, train harder, and perform at my best. ATP Labs uses high-quality ingredients you can feel good about, and you'll feel the difference. If you're serious about fueling your performance, check them out. Use the link in the show notes and the code 3phase10 to get 10% off of your orders. Thanks for sticking it out through the ads, and we'll see you on the next episode.